Hello everyone, welcome back to Legions of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. In today's video, we're going to look at the Death Grand Alliance FAQ that has recently came out. I thought it would be important to do a video on this, just in case any of you guys missed it, or if you're going to a tournament or a competitive game, it's always important that you know what the latest FAQ says and how it changes the army. Because if you have a certain army that you've been practicing with a lot, and you go to a tournament and there's been a recent FAQ and you missed out on it, and you get to the tournament, you still have to abide by the new rules in the FAQ, and that could absolutely just rip up your game plan in front of your face. So you really have to get to know the new changes. Okay, so starting with the Flesh Eater Courts, it just says for page 89, and this will be in the Flesh Eater Courts battle tone, change the War Scroll title and all references to the Terrorgeist to Flesh Eater Court Terrorgeist. And then it says on page 90, Zombie Dragon, change the War Scroll title and all references to Zombie Dragon to Flesh Eater Court's Zombie Dragon. So this is just in the Flesh Eater Court battle tome. This is just to make the difference between Flesh Eater Court Zombie Dragon Terrorgeist and the Legions of Nagash Zombie Dragon and Terrorgeist. Very clear and different, just so people know that there are actually different point costs for both of those different types of monsters. You know, the Flesh Eater Court type and the Legions of Nagash, they have different points values and they have different War Scrolls. So it's important not to get those mixed up. Okay, now we move on to the Legions of Nagash. So it says page 64, Legion of Saccharine command trait, Mark of the Favoured. Change the last sentence to, on a 6+, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all its attacks have been resolved. Now, compared to what the command trait says in the book, this is a bit of a downgrade, to be honest, because how it was, I believe, when an enemy unit went to attack the model with this command trait, roll a dice on a 6, they would take a mortal wound. However, that attacking unit gets to do all of his attacks first, and then on a 6 he takes a mortal wound. So I think this is just really bad now. I mean, I'm not a fan of it at all. There's so many better command traits out there. Because before, I wasn't a huge fan of this either. I mean, on a 6+, the attacking unit takes a mortal wound. Sounds pretty weak. However, it meant that, I don't know, say the guy with this command trait was, I don't know, something as simple as a necromancer or something like that, and the enemy charged in there, I don't know, say a fairly combat hero into necromancer just to take him off the board and get rid of your general. But that enemy hero only had 1 wound. Now, if you went to attack your necromancer, there would be a chance that he could take a mortal wound before he got to do any attacks, and he would lose his, you know, his hero, and your necromancer would be unscathed. So it would make him have to think: does he really want to attack the necromancer? How much does it mean to him? And there's a risk involved. However, now that opponent with that hero who's attacking your necromancer will just be like, well, you know, if I die, at least I've killed your, you know, your general, so I'm not really too bothered. So the command trait Mark of the Favoured, I'm really not a fan of, unfortunately, anymore. Then we move on to page 67, Legion of Blood, Artifact of Blood, Ring of Dominion. And now it says, add the following to the end of the rules text. Abilities, modifiers or rerolls that apply to attacks made with that weapon when it is used by the enemy model do not apply to the attacks made with it by the bearer. Okay, so this Ring of Dominion was the one where you get to, when you select this, the bearer of the artifact to attack in the combat phase, he gets to pick a enemy model within 3 inches of him, and he gets to pick one of the enemy model's attacks, but it cannot be attacked with like a star sign or something like that, so that's usually trying to stop you using it on monsters. So you get to pick one of their attacks and you get to make that attack against them, as well as your own attacks. So this is just making sure that, I don't know, let's say you're going up against Archaon, let's say, you know, let's just pick up a big one for example. So you're going against Archaon, you're going to attack him first, you're going to use the Slayer of Kings against him. However, let's say this Archaon is in a Khorne army, and the Slayer of King normally gets 4 attacks, but because it's in a Khorne army, he's managing to get 2 extra attacks, let's say, because he's got a Bloodsecrator nearby and an Inspiring Deathbringer. So, Archaon with his Slayer of Kings is making 6 attacks. However, when you try and use it against him, you'll only be making 4 attacks. because you're not getting all the modifiers to his attacks, just to make sure it's not too overpowered and basically people don't complain about it. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, it's a downgrade if you were expecting to be able to use the enemy modifiers of their attacks against them. However, it's still a pretty good artifact. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a bit of a hit there, but I think we can take it. I think, you know, it's a good enough artifact by itself. We don't really need to add in all these additional, you know, bonuses and stuff to making the enemy attack himself, essentially. I think their standard attack on their war scroll will be fine. Okay, and now it says, page 67 again, Legion of Blood, Artifact of Blood, Amulet of Screams. So change the rule text to once per battle. When an enemy wizard successfully casts a spell, you can declare that the bearer will use the Amulet of Screams. If you do so, you cannot attempt to unbind the spell. Instead, roll a dice. On a 2+, the spell is not successfully cast. Okay, so I talked about obviously all the artifacts before when I did my, well, for example, Legion of Blood review. And I thought this was quite a nice one because, like, on a 2-up, just gets to stop that spell only once per battle. But if it just stops a, I don't know, a Gaunt Summoner going on a Bellwind Vortex just for one extra turn, you know, it can really make a big difference in the game. So now the only difference I can see here with the change to the rules text is at the end of what it says here on the new FAQ is that on a 2+, the spell is not successfully cast. Now in the battle tome it says on a 2-up, I think it says like the spell does not go off and any abilities caused by are negated, something like that. So I can't really see what the difference is between these two changes of rule text. If you guys know and there's something I'm missing out on, let me know. But they're obviously trying to make the difference between it not being successfully cast and the spell being negated and having no effect. I myself think that's essentially the same thing, but there might be a couple things out there that prove me wrong. So that's that. And then we move on to page 92, Death March. March for the Dead. Change the rule text to, at the start of your hero phase, each unit from this battalion wholly within 12 inches of the battalion's White King and more than 3 inches from enemy models can move 4 inches. The unit cannot run or move within 3 inches of an enemy unit, and the distance to the White King must be measured before any of the moves are made. Okay, so I personally think this one's absolutely garbage now. I used to really like this battalion, the Death March. I actually took it quite a few times, like before Legions of Nagash, because it was like the only battalion Death had. And how it used to be, and how it's actually written in the War Scroll battalion in the battle tome, is units from this battalion within 9 inches of the White King get to make that extra 4-inch move. However, now they have to be wholly within 12 inches of the White King. And I just think, like I said, I think that's absolutely crap, to be honest with you guys, because how many times have I said with Death, you want to, especially with Death Rattle, maybe not so much Black Knights, but with everything else in Death Rattle, you want to have big units. Especially you want to have like units of 40 skeletons, you want to have like units of 20 Graveguard, potentially 30 Graveguard, and then Black Knights, unit 5 is okay, but unit 10 would be better. So now, like, you're probably only going to be able to get one unit wholly within 12 inches of your White King, and that's with you, like, always trying to make sure it's within 12 inches. Not like, oh, it happens to be within 12 inches, that's good. It's like, no, you actually have to work quite hard to make sure it stays within 12 inches. And because you want the White King, you don't really want him to be too far forward because he's not a combat hero, and he should really stay back, just to make him a bit more survivable. You could always make the White King mount him on his skeletal steed and just ride him with the Black Knights and make all the other skeletons and the Graveguard just have to walk slowly and your Black Knights just be really fast, just to concentrate on them. Could be a way to do it, but I personally just think this is really not good, because I mean, wholly within 12 inches, that's, I mean, it's not the smallest range. I mean, like I said, originally it was units within 9 inches. So 12 inches, you know, the range increased, but now you have to be wholly within it. Because before I used to just tag units. I used to just have like a unit of 40 skeletons will still get the bonus because one of them is within 9 inches of the White King. Looking at the change again where it says and the distance to the White King must be measured before any of the moves are made. Okay, so this part of the change is fair enough because you could very easily, if the White King wasn't in range of one of the units to be able to move it, you could very easily just go, well, he's going to make everything that's around him at the moment move, and then he's going to move to be within range of the other unit, what wasn't in range originally, to make that be able to move as well. So measuring from before any moves are made is fair enough. I think that's a fair enough change. Everything else I think is absolutely shit, to be honest. Like I said, I'm really disappointed in that, and because, you know, it's not the most expensive battalion by far. Like, it's only costing 110 points, and there's a lot of battalions out there like 200 points and so on, but 110 points for this. I mean, I know you also get another ability in the battalion where you get to return one slain model to each of your units if the unit's within 9 inches of the White King. Which, yeah, it's alright because you've got so many Gravesite even, who are bringing back all those models. It's really not a necessary ability, I find. I think the best thing about this battalion definitely was the being able to make the extra movement, and you can still make the extra movement, but not with all the units in the battalion. And something else that personally annoys me is that I understand these, like, you know, there's the odd little change where, you know, they'll just quickly change a sentence or something like that to what it says in the battle tome, but also I know this comes down to play testing, and they probably get feedback for how the army plays once the book's out, and so they know if it's too powerful and they need to tame it down a little bit. But I do find it quite annoying how, you know, I buy a book for, I think it was £25 the battle tome, and then there's whole huge text on it that have just been completely changed. So, like, I can't just open my £25, you know, battle tome and read it how it is, because I also have to print out or get on my phone this FAQ to be able to correspond with it to make sure I'm doing it right. I mean, like, what I was looking forward to in this Legions of Nagash battle tome is, like, I can buy this and then everything apart from Flesh-Eater Courts and, you know, like the Mongol and a couple other things, everything's in this book, and this is all I sort of need to take to my games as well as the General's Handbook. But no, I actually need to print this out and take this as well, because they're already correcting things within a week. And I mean, the Death March, you know, battalion, it was not overpowered at all. There's horrendous things out there, and the Death March was sort of like, you know, do I take it? I mean, my Death Rattle video talking about Legions of Nagash, I talked about Death March, and I was like, and I was saying in that, it's generally quite a good battalion, but when I tried to do my army list, I was trying to, like, forcibly fit it in there to make it good. However, now it's just, like I say, I really don't like it. Like, I don't really want to swear again about it, but it's just terrible, especially when it's compared to, like, other battalions out there. It's just like, what does it do? And now that it's been changed, so it's, you know, weaker, it's just a bit like, what was the point? Why did they waste their time and our time changing this rule? Because it was not broken at all before. I mean, yeah, sure, the skeleton's been able to move automatic 8 inches, the skeleton warriors and the grave guard, that is, and the Black Knight's been able to move 16 inches, was really strong. However, you still had to try and make sure everything was in range of the White King to be able to do so. And I mean, it's not, you know, like, you paid 110 points for this battalion. As soon as your 5 wound White King was sniped off the board, that in my games quite happened to, you know, happened turn 1, turn 2. Even if I put him in a bit of scenery and with his shield he had a, you know, like 2-up save, he would still die, you know, turn 1, turn 2 to more wounds from shooting. So, like I say, I'm going to move on from this change to Death March battalion, because, you know, to be honest, it's just really making me annoyed, because it was unnecessary and they just thought they'd do it anyway. Okay, so moving on to page 100. Prince of Hordre, Breath of Shaish. Change the first sentence to, at the start of your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 8 inches of this model that is visible to it. Okay, so this makes absolutely complete sense. This is a very important update they've added to it. because how it's originally written is pick an enemy unit within 8 inches of the model that is visible to it, and then, you know, on a 3-up to start with, it takes 6 mortal wounds, and automatically you think, okay, for that, so that's for the shooting phase. But because it doesn't say shooting phase, and it doesn't actually say any phase, it just says pick an enemy model, so or enemy unit even in 8 inches. So you could just technically keep on doing it every second of every game, which obviously just sounds absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous and would not make any sense at all. So obviously that's not how it's meant to be interpreted, but, you know, technically it doesn't say you can't do that. So I'm sure no one did, but it's just one of the things they just had to quickly clear up. So they've made that change, and this is just a perfect example of why that's a necessary change to Principle of Order's Breath of Choice, just to give it, you know, to write it down actually exactly when you use it. Compared to the change to a Death March battalion, which is just absolutely unneeded. It's like the change also to the Legion of Sacrament command trait Mark of the Favoured, where on a 6-up after the enemy attacks you, you know, it takes a mortal wound, which I just think is absolutely an unnecessary change there as well. Okay, so now we move on to the frequently asked questions. So, question number 1. If Neferata casts Dark Mist on a unit of Blood Knights, do they get +1 to their saves against all attacks? And the answer is no. Okay, so this is referring to, I want to call them Crypt Shields, but I think they're called something else for the Blood Knights. I think they might be called, are they called Blood Shields or something like that? But anyway, they have the same thing where if you're going up against if you're making save rolls against attacks that do not have a rend, you get +1 to your save. So because of the Dark Mist ability, if you put it on the Blood Knights, it would mean that their save can't be modified. So means that the enemy was attacking you with rend, you don't treat it as having rend. So then that brings up the question as, oh, if I don't treat it as having rend, my shield says I get +1 to my save if the enemy's attacking me without rend. So I should get the +1 to my save, and this is just saying you don't get the +1 to your save, because I believe that spell now is, yeah, your save can't be modified. So you can't modify it positively or negatively. So that's just a no answer to that, quite simple. Okay, and then the next question is, if a Lich Priest Righteous Smiting is cast twice or more on the same unit, do the effects stack in any way? I.e., would the unit generate 1 additional attack for each instance of Righteous Smiting successfully cast on it, every time a 6 or more is rolled to hit, including when rolling to hit for additional attacks it makes? And the answer is yes. Okay, so first off, in case you guys don't know what this is, because this is a Tomb King unit, so you might not see it that much, basically its spell is pick a Desert Legion unit, which is a lot of the skeletal units within the Tomb King army, or pick a Reanimate unit, which is obviously things like Necrosphinxes, things like Serpent Guard as well, and like War Sphinxes, things like that. And also, important to note, Morgoth's Archive. So that's something that could be useful if you're taking a Grand Alliance Death Army with them. So the spell lets you, so you put it on that unit, and then every time that unit gets a 6 to hit, it makes an additional attack. So the question here is just asking, if you cast it more than once on the same unit, would it make more than 1 additional attacks on the 6 to hit? And the answer is yes. However, this is like an open play or narrative question, because this would not work in match play, because you cannot cast the same spell twice on that unit. Okay, moving on to the next question. Can I use the zombie's Shambling Horde ability to create a unit that is larger than the normal maximum size of the unit for a zombie unit in a pitch battle? Does it cost reinforcement points to use the ability? And it says no to both, because firstly, in the Legions of Nagash, I believe zombies can't merge units anymore. However, if you're taking an older War Scroll, which I think it's important to take the latest War Scrolls, just to be fair, especially I think in tournaments you have to. However, if you are just taking the older War Scroll, and then this question is like relevant to you, you cannot merge your units to make them bigger than the match play pitch battle profile they have. For example, if you had, I think the maximum size you can have is a unit of 60, so if you had, I don't know, 2 units of 60, you merge them to 120, that is not possible to do. Right, moving on to the next question. If you have a White King with an Infernal Standard, do you start allocating wounds to one model in that unit, continuing until it fails the special save for being within range of the standard? Or there are no more wounds to allocate? And the answer is yes. So this can clear up a question which was very relevant before the Legions of Nagash, which was the White King when he had his Infernal Standard. I mean, again, technically you can use this older War Scroll, and obviously you can because they're answering a question about it. However, like I say, personally myself, I always take the latest War Scrolls as I think it's the most fair and the most represents their points value in the game. Apart from the White King, because I think it is incredibly overpointed, and if you disagree with that, you just have to look at a Lord Redactor who only costs 80 points, which is 40 points cheaper than a White King. Okay, next question. After suffering casualties in the following hero phase, can a unit of skeleton warriors with a surviving icon bearer or standard bearer recover d6, d3 or 1 of any models, e.g. the skeleton champion, hornblower in a unit or skeleton warriors, or just regular models? Basic skeleton warriors in that unit. And then it says, answer, you can recover any slain models from the unit, including skeleton champions, etc. So, I think this is an older question, I believe. This has always been around on an FAQ, this question. So, to be fair, why they've answered questions like the White King with his Infernal Standard and the Zombies Shambling Horde, when I say that those are out-of-date War Scrolls, maybe these are just old questions they've answered. So it could just be that, because I know certainly the last one is. Right, okay, now moving back onto Legions of Nagash. So question, how large is a Gravesite and a Gravesite marker? And then the answer is, a Gravesite is a point you pick on the battlefield that you can measure to. It does not have a size as such. You can consider it to be 1mm across if you wish. Gravesite markers are simply to help you remember where the gravesites are located, and therefore can be of any size. They have no effect on the game other than to mark the location of the gravesite. They do not interfere with movement or visibility, and they can be moved aside to allow the movement and placement of units, if need be, in any which case you will need to remember the location of a gravesite by any means. Okay, so this is just saying when people want to build their own gravesites, because the only way to get a gravesite's markers are in the War Scroll cards, which I personally purchased because I've never been a big fan of War Scroll cards, to be honest. However, I thought with all the extra tokens you got on there, it'd be really useful. And yeah, the War Scroll cards, the writing on there is absolutely ridiculously small, and it's not, they haven't been, you know, not a lot of effort's been made into them, the cards themselves, which is sad because they just literally shrunk down the text. However, it's quite useful if you've got a game where, I don't know, you've got 5 different units in your army, quite a small game, and you can just put draw 5 cards out and have them on the table rather than having to have your book in the table. You can just have it in your bag and only need to get out when you need to. So, going back to Gravesite markers, so if you don't get the War Scroll cards, a lot of people have been making their own markers on what tends to be a 14mm round base or a like small cavalry oval base, which you know, is great. I mean, I've seen some fantastic hobby out there, and like I say, particularly on Facebook, where I think there's done ones like, people have done ones like skeletons climbing out the ground, which is very nice, but then people have done like skeletons climbing out the ground with like spirits coming from them, like I can't remember who did it, but there was like one really nice one where the spirits were painted nicely blue and it was really nicely themed. So you can really take it as far as you want, but they are just saying that it is literally just a point, so literally just like a pin, a 1mm point, because you know that's as small as you can realistically measure on the battlefield. So it's just from that point. So if you're making your own gravesites, don't make them ridiculously big so they obstruct units, because your opponent can and will move the marker out of the way if they want to get their units past it. But if you do want to make your own, which, you know, I highly encourage you, because it's always awesome to see that little bit of personal hobby, try and make, if you have like a skeleton climb out the ground, or I don't know, just a tombstone, try and make the centre of that model of the gravesite in the centre of the base, or if you have like a flag or a banner or something, try and put it in the centre so you know that's the point where you measure from. If the whole gravesite has got loads of it going on every single different part of the base, it could be quite hard to find a centre point. So try and pick a point in the centre of the marker you're going to use, and mark it, like I say, with a banner or a tombstone, something like that, just so it's an easy reminder. Okay, then we move on to the next question, which is, if a single hero is within 9 inches of 2 different gravesites, can you set up 2 different units from the gravesite, 1 from each gravesite? Okay, so the answer is yes, and I thought it would be yes anyway. However, it's nice to get that clarification that it's not, you know, only one death hero can only bring things up from one gravesite. If he's in range of 2 or more, he can bring multiple, or he can bring a unit up from each of those. What is interesting they haven't mentioned in the FAQ, I don't believe, is how it's actually written in the battle tome is for each death hero within range of the gravesite, you can set up a unit. I don't think it says friendly hero, you know, friendly death hero. So if the enemy's got a death hero within 9 inches of it, technically you can set up your own unit at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets changed quickly, but for the moment, you can do that. And I think the next, the next Age of Sigmar tournament at Warhammer World is on the 24th and the 25th of March, and so this month. And I'm personally going to that as a doubles event. It's my first doubles event, so that'll be quite interesting. So it'll be interesting to see if they update that rule before that tournament. Otherwise, that tournament will be quite interesting, because I imagine there'll be a lot of death players there. Okay, the next question. If I use the Unquiet Battle trait to set up a unit at the end of my movement phase, can the unit move? Answer, no. Things that happen at the end of a phase take place after all that phase's usual activities. In the case of the movement phase, this means they occur after all normal moves have been made. Okay, so this was pretty straightforwardly written, I thought, because if you set something up at the end of the movement phase, it's to try and imply that, you know, it can't move again. You know, it can't, if it's set up at the end of the movement phase, it can't move again. Otherwise, it would just say set up in the movement phase and it can move as normal. Again, you know, it is important that they, you know, write it very clearly like this, just to make sure no one, you know, misunderstands this. Because to be honest, as you read it, it could be like, well, it doesn't say I can't move, so why can't I? Which, you know, is fair enough, but it's not how it's intended, so they fixed that now. So yeah, again, fair enough change. I think most of us expected it to be like that anyway, so we haven't really taken it as a hit. Okay, and then the next question is, can I use one of the dice rolls for the Invigorating Aura ability to both heal models, and then, if enough points are left over, bring back slain models? If I don't roll high enough to bring back a model with all its wounds healed, can I bring it back with only as many wounds remaining as the dice roll? And then the answer is no to both questions. An Invigorating Aura roll can either heal or return models, not both. And you can only use it to return slain models whose wound combined characteristic is equal to or less than that roll. Okay, so I'm pretty sure they had this written down in there anyway. I don't think this should be new information for everyone. I can't remember if I just saw it on enough people saying it on Facebook, or I saw it actually in the battle tome. I think I might have saw it in the actual battle tome, just saying, you know, I don't know if you're bringing back spirit hosts. You know, they have 3 wounds apiece and 1 died, so you try and bring it back, and you roll your d3 and you only get a 1. Can I bring it back with 1 wound? No, you have to bring it back with a full model. That's why things like skeleton warriors and things like, you know, zombies, and like what I like in the moment, Graveguard, can use the gravesites to the best of their advantage compared to like 2 wound models or more. Right, okay, so the next question is, if I'm fighting a pitch battle into the Endless Legions and the Master Teaching's abilities cost reinforcement points, and the answer is just like easy yes. I mean, when I first talked about these abilities. I was saying myself, hopefully it won't cost reinforcement points, because if it doesn't cost reinforcement points, it'd be amazing and maybe overpowered. But if it does cost reinforcement points, I think if you're not playing like a narrative game or a fun game, or whether you're playing like a match play game, I think they're absolutely pointless abilities. I mean, there might be a time when it's useful, and then when it is useful, guarantee you haven't saved the points for it. So unless you really want to play for it just for narrative effect, because being able to raise back your slain units out of the gravesites could be really, really cool. However, in like really competitive games, I don't see this being useful at all. And then them answering yes to this, I mean, we did all sort of see it coming. However, it has just put the final nail in the coffin for those abilities. Then the next question is, in what order are the Deathless Minions, Morcane and Ceaseless Vigor, which is from the first cohort battalion? Rules apply if happened at the same time. And then the answer is, if several abilities can be used at the same time, the player whose turn is taking place uses their abilities first, one after the other, in any order they desire. Then the player whose turn is not taking place uses their abilities one after another, in any order they desire. The same principle applies to all other things, such as command traits, artifacts of power that can be used simultaneously during a battle round. Okay, so we sort of predicted that, things like Deathless Minions and other abilities similar to those would be able to use them in the order that we wish. We presume that anyway, so that's good that we can confirm that. However, what is interesting here is then it says if it's your turn and you have abilities that trigger in in phases, you always get to use your abilities from what order you wish, unless it says differently in the abilities. You get to use them whatever order you wish, and then after that your opponent gets to use their abilities in the order. So you always get to do your abilities first before the opponent can. I don't know, if the opponent's got a sneaky thing that can do more wounds to you or something like that, you can always do your abilities first. So that's quite useful there. And then the next question is, how does Ceaseless Vigor interact with Scarbrand's Total Carnage rule? So answer, Ceaseless Vigor cannot be used to reallocate suffered from Total Carnage. Okay, so a little bit surprised in that you can't reallocate them, because it does sort of say in that ability for Ceaseless Vigor that you can reallocate those wounds. However, Total Carnage is Total Carnage from Scarbrand. He's going to smack the thing he wants to in the face with his two axes. He's not going to allow the wounds to get passed on. So narratively, I can see that, I can understand that, that's fine. And then next question is, can the War Scroll battalions for Pacific Legions be taken outside of the legion named on their War Scroll? So it says, answer, the first cohort can only be taken as part of the Grand Host of Nagash, because the other legions cannot include Nagash. Any other battalions for Pacific Legions can be included as part of a different legion, as long as that legion also includes the Mortarch that must lead it. For example, to include the Court of New Lamia in a Legion of Sacrament army, the army would also have to include Arcan the Black, because if the Legion of Sacrament has any Mortarches, one must be Arcan. Okay, so we know this because it just says this at the start of the each one of the legions. Like, if, like say, if you're taking the Legion of Sacrament, you have to have Arcan included if you have any Mortarches in that, and then obviously if Arcan is in the Legion of Sacrament, he has to be the general. So it's quite narratively restricted, I think is the best way to describe it in that sense. However, you can take those other battalions in those other legions, which is good, just in case there was any confusion there. Again, it's just cleared something else up, just to make sure everyone, can make the most of this battle time as they can. So it's already fairly restrictive. I'm not trying to say it's restricted in a bad way, because if you have Nagash and the Grand Host of Nagash, for example, he should be the leader. He is the most powerful necromancer and the first human necromancer to ever exist, and you know, he is the god of death essentially. He should be the leader of it. You know, he's not going to let some pesky you know, vampire lord try and tell him what to do if he's in the army as well. So I think, you know, like I say, it is a restriction. However, it makes much sense in a narrative way. I mean, I can happily take these restrictions just because it makes a lot more sense in the story. Yeah, I mean, it might hinder us a little bit, to be honest, because, you know, you compare it to any of the other you know, armies out there, they don't have to have, you know, like, they're not forced to take certain people as their general. And because, you know, named characters can't actually have command traits of artifacts, arguably they're not as good as, you know, like Manfred von Carstein on his Dread Abyssal is arguably not as good as a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon in combat, especially if you give them artifacts and stuff. However, we're forced to take the Mort Archers, like I say, from a story point of view. And the Mort Archers aren't that bad. The worst thing about them is they've only got 11 wounds. I'm still annoyed about that, because 11 wounds isn't much. You know, Arcan, who's only 320 points, 11 wounds. Okay, it's not too bad, but like Manfred, who's like 420 points and 11 wounds, that's pretty, you know, hard to swallow. Especially how they only have a 4-up save. They can get killed very easily. But anyway, so that's a topic for another time. So it's just telling us you can, you know, mix and match the battalions as long as you're abiding by the first paragraph, I think it is, of rules at the start of each legion. So the next question is, do you need to tell your opponent which ed is chosen for the shift and keep ability? And the answer is yes. So this is the shift and keep ability for, I can't remember the name of the battalion, but it's the one with Prince Vahordre and his, I think it's 3 units of Blood Knights, where one of the abilities is you pick a board edge, and then your units can come on that board edge later in the game, and they get like certain bonuses if they are within range of this board edge, because this is where they're you know, they're essentially their floating Fortress of Dread is just it's right next to it, so it's where they can keep them reinforced, where they can keep them getting buffed from like the abilities from this huge, you know, necromantic powerhouse essentially. And then it just says, you know, do you have to tell your opponent which board edge you've picked for it? And then the answer is yes, because, you know, I think we all worked out in our heads that we had to tell our opponent, otherwise it's just like you could easily just change the situation, you know, the board edge when a situation goes badly for you, which, you know, is not the right thing to do. It's like, even I, with my armies, I quite often tell my opponent in a game, like when we're setting up, I will say like, this is the champion for the Graveguard unit, or this is the champion for the, you know, the Crypt Flares or something like that, just to make sure my opponent knows which models are the special models in that unit essentially, so he knows I don't pick them when it best suits me. Okay, and then on to the next question is, Manfred's command ability has a range. Is the effect worked out when the ability is used or when the attacks are made? And the answer is when the attacks are made. Again, I think we could all predict this, because it says you can re-roll, you know, hits and wounds of 1 for units within range of his command ability, which I think starts off, it's like 15 or 16 inches, I think it's 16. So you would presume it would be the units in range when they make those attacks, otherwise I think if it wasn't like that, it'd be worded a bit differently. But again, like a lot of these questions and answers, it's just good to have it cleared and easily written down, in case you fully understand this is how it works anyway. Like I say, you go to you're having a competitive game, or, you know, you're playing against someone you've never played against before, or you're going to a tournament and the person you're fighting, you know, like I say, don't really play against, or you've never played against before, and they don't know that you're generally, you know, like a, you know, a good person, and you know, essentially not a liar or a cheat. So you've just got this written down just to show them, actually, you know, in a friendly manner, of course, not just like pointing out and saying they're wrong. In a friendly manner, just saying, actually, it's been you know, reworded like this, so I am correct. In a, you know, like I say, in a nice way of doing that. You can just prove your opponent wrong. So the next one is question is, if Prince Vahordre uses Fist of Nagash on a hero, does that hero have to be within 3 inches of an enemy to pile in an attack? And the answer is yes. So Prince Vahordre's Fist of Nagash command ability is pick one of your pick a death hero. I think it's a death hero within, I can't remember the range of it, I'm afraid, but you pick a death hero within range of him, and they get to either cast a spell, like an additional spell to what they can normally cast, or they get to pile in an attack. So this is obviously regarding the pile in an attack ability, and just say you have to be, you know, within 3 inches of an enemy to be able to pile an attack. You have to essentially already be in combat, which, you know, makes sense. Because I think on the rules, the huge FAQ that's out there for just like the rules, which is something like 20 pages long, which you have to read if you go to tournaments, which, you know, is like a little bit like, you know, studying for an essay or something, but you have to read it, or even just print it out to take to the tournament in case you need to refer to the questions. On that, it says that you can only like make piling moves if you're in combat, or if you've made a successful charge that turn. I think there are only 2 ways you can make a piling move. So for example, if you got a unit that can pile in 6 inches, I think like a Chaos Lord of Manticore is one of them, who, if he's devoted to Khorne, he can pile in 6 inches. He can't just pile into combat if he fails his charge, for example. He has to already be in combat to make that piling. Okay, and then on to the next question. Can I use Bat Swarm's Bloodsucker's ability to bring back models that have been slain? It says, answer, no. It can only be used to heal wounds on models in that unit that have not been slain. I think this is a pretty straightforward. I'm surprised this was asked, because I think the rule for that just says if, you know, one of your Bat Swarm models causes, or if the unit causes any wounds in the combat phase, all models in that unit heal their wounds. So you're not regenerating models, you're just healing the wounds on the models that are already there. So I think that's pretty straightforward. I'm surprised that was asked, but as always, it's good to get things cleared up in case obviously someone thought it wasn't clear enough, so, you know, it's good for them that now they know. The next question is, can a Vampire Lord both be given a Nightmare and be a Flying Horror? And the answer is no. I mean, I think this is very straightforward again, because I think it says on the War Scroll that they can either be one or the other, they can't be both. It probably doesn't say they can't be both, it probably just says they can be one or the other. So I think this is straightforward. However, it would have been awesome if they said yes for some random reason, just so you could give your guy a Nightmare and then, you know, like model wings onto it and make like a really cool conversion. That would be absolutely awesome. But no, you can't do that. So, like I say, fair enough, it's straightforward. And then the next question is, the Black Coach has the hero keyword, but is not a leader. According to the pitch battle profiles in the back of the book, is this correct? And the answer is yes. So this could be interesting. So the Black Coach is a hero. I absolutely hate the Black Coach. I think I've said this enough. In the huge game I did a video on, which I had on Saturday at Warhammer World, which I had 10,230 points in my army, had, I can't even remember how many wizards in the army. There's probably about 10 or something, or just under that. But anyway, so the Black Coach at one point, I think he had like 8 wizards within range of him, and I rolled to try and advance the levels, because like, if I'm ever going to get this guy up these levels with his like ability, basically he's got levels. So for example, roll a dice for every Death Wizard within, I think, 12 inches of him, and on a 6 he goes up a level and he essentially gets a bit better. So I thought, when he was within range of 8 of them, I thought, you know, if he's ever going to go up levels, and if I'm ever going to prove myself wrong of how bad I think this guy is, this is the time. So I had 8 guys in range of him, so I rolled 8 dice. He didn't get any. He failed, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's annoying. I'm going to try again next turn. So his next turn, rolled again, didn't get any. And then on the turn after that, I think there was like 4 wizards within range of him, and then I rolled again, and he didn't get any. So that's like, what was that? That's like 20 dice I rolled to try and advance his levels, and he didn't get any 6s out of 20 dice. And it's just like I say, finally confirmed to me. That's the first time I've ever used that model. Just absolutely how non-essential he is in the army, in my own opinion. I think is the nicest way I can put it. Okay, so, however, with him, I mean, you have an extra hero, so which doesn't take up one of your leader slots, which is always a good thing. Important to note, that's always a good thing. And you could use it to, you know, bring models on from a grave, you know, from one of the Gravesites, because if you wanted to have 7 heroes in your army, you could. And, you know, for max out deathless minions, yeah, I mean, you know, there's ways, but I still really don't think he is worth it. So we'll move on to the next question. So the question is, can the Circle Guard be taken in Legion of Nagash army? The answer is no, but you should feel free to add the models to units of skeletons. So this is something I've already said before, is that you can't take them in the army, as well as the Mongol. So, and I mean, they just say can't take them because they're not in the book. However, use them as skeleton warriors, which I feel like the guy answering this question's almost like, yeah, I know it sucks that you can't take him as part of your army, but just use them as like skeleton warriors. And obviously when it says use them as just normal skeleton warriors, you know, probably things like champions and stuff like that. You know, it does kind of suck. I mean, like, I've got a box of these guys. I haven't even made them yet because I don't know what I'm doing with them. I don't play Shadespire. But I will, you know, make them as my champions for my skeleton units. That's what I was originally going to do. So it's not too bad for me, because I wasn't going to use them as their actual war scroll, because I don't think they're particularly good in the, you know, in a match play game. So I was going to use them as skeleton champions anyway, so it's just confirming what I already knew. The next question is, can a Mongol be taken in a Legions of Nagash army? So the answer is no. It can be taken in Death, Nighthorn armies, and as an ally by a Soulblight army. Okay, so like I said, like, the Mongol can't be taken because it's not in the Battle Tome. However, I am a bit surprised and a little bit saddened by this, because I thought they just haven't put it in the Battle Tome. That's because it's a Forge World model. So Forge World rule writers and Games Workshop rule writers, I believe they're not in the same department, so they do their own thing. So they would have just released, they released the latest War Scroll of the Mongol, making it a lot weaker. So, like I say, they made it a lot weaker, and I thought at the bottom of the page of the War Scroll they would have said, you know, he costs 350 points, he can be included in Legion of the Nagash armies. Just because he's not in the Battle Tome, he can still be included. However, this is clearly stated that he can't be taken in Legion of the Nagash, but he can be taken in Grand Alliance Death, which, if you haven't got Tomb Kings, I have no idea why you would take Grand Alliance Death. I think it's absolutely not the best, which I made a video on before. And then Nighthorn armies, I personally don't have a Nighthorn armies. I think Nighthorn has definitely got a lot stronger, so you could still see a lot of Nighthorn armies out there, with the Mongols certainly being one of them in that army. And then you can be taken as part of Soulblight army, because Nighthorn, you know, can be taken as allies for Soulblights. So you might still see the Mongol out and about, but I literally do feel like everyone just complains so much about the Mongol, and like, to an unnecessary amount. Like, the Mongol was, you know, he was good, and he was, you know, and I'll be the first to admit, he was a real tough bastard to try and kill. He cost 400 points, you know, and he had 10 wounds, I believe, for 400 points, which isn't that many at all. And like, so now he costs 350 points. He doesn't get his extra 5-up save against wounds and mortal wounds anymore, and he can't be taken Legion of Nagash because they just, I think they pretty much just want us to stop taking him. And, you know, so they really nerfed him so much. I mean, like, they really nerfed him, and then with this final thing, it's just like, yeah, so probably the majority of Death players won't be taking him, as of course you can't have him in the Fleshy Courts army as well, because they can't ally with Nighthorn, and as it can't be summoned anymore, it just means you can't have them in your Fleshy Court army. As summoning's changed, of course. So, like I say, a lot of people, you know, and I say complain, I mean, basically what they did is whined, because it really annoyed me. I think I've talked about this before, about the Mongol, because, okay, so, yeah, it was hard to kill, you know. So, you know, people complain about it, so no, it's no longer hard to kill, and not a lot of people are going to be taking it. However, a fucking Star Drake with a Lord Sersan on top of it easily can be made to have a 2-up save, re-rolling ones. If it re-rolls the 1, you take more wounds. And not just you, every one of your units within 3 inches of that guy takes more wounds. And then I think the dragon's got something like you can make it have like a gift, so it makes you -1 to hit it. Then a Lord to lightning bolts you, so you're another -1 to hit it. So you're -2 to hit something that has a 2-up save, re-rolling ones, and 16 wounds, and can just eat heroes, and can generally just devastate a lot of things, hordes or elites, and it can rain down stars from the skies. And you know, like a star is like the sun. So yeah, something like that's okay. I mean, admittedly, that's a lot more points than the Mongol. I mean, that is it 620 points? You know, it's a lot of points. But you get so much for those points. And it's just generally really annoys me. How the fuck can something like that exist for Stormcast? And I don't always want to start, you know, because I mean, obviously this is me moaning and whining a little bit about Stormcast as well, and being a little bit of a hypocrite, but just fed up with these poster boys getting everything they want. You know, these Stormcast just, you know, being able to have everything, and then Def is like, oh, you got something a bit powerful there, haven't you? Well, we're just going to take that away from you. And don't get me wrong, the new Def spells and stuff can be horrific, and we can do really nasty things now. But we have been like nerfed a lot. It's like I don't want to go back to that battalion I talked about earlier. However, the you know, the what was it called, the Death March battalion, which I talked about. Yeah, Death March is, you know, just got nerfed now. So it's like, oh, well, that battalion did sort of work a bit. It was quite good, wasn't it, to move your skeletons up? Okay, yeah, no, you can't have that anymore. It's just really annoying, and it's like, this is, like I say, I mean hypocrite here, because I was just saying people whining about the Mongol, and now I'm whining about something, and you know, just basically complaining. However, like I say, the Mongol wasn't that powerful. I mean, like, what I did with the Mongol is that when I went to fight against the Mongol, a lot of the times I admitted that I can't kill this thing in this game. It won't die. I'm just going to give it many things to play with, mainly things like, you know, skeletons and zombies and stuff, because they would always come back. I'm just going to tie it up and concentrate everything else in the opponent's army. And then if you manage to tie up the Mongol on a flank or something, you know, it wasn't really making you that minuses to hit that much for the rest of your army, and it was just out of the way. That's how I dealt with it a lot of the times. When there's a Star Drake on the table, I can't even tie that thing up, because if I try and tie up with skeletons, it's just going to eat the banners. Even if I put the banners at the back of the unit, it will find a way to eat them. So then my skeletons can't come back, and then they'll die a lot quicker, and then it'll swing its tail and just knock the rest out. However, with Gravesites, yeah, there's, you know, it can't individually eat the banner now, so you could bring more models, but the dragon's going to wipe out the unit in one turn. So I really don't like Star Drakes. I think they are super overpowered. And like I said, they're really expensive for points, but they are really worth their points. So yeah, that's like it with a Star Drake. And then it's like, got someone who, for example, that person had a game against them, beat within 5 minutes, and just whined about it for like 4 days in a row. He was one of the first people to start complaining about the Mongol, because he said, you know, this Mongol destroyed my, you know, 2,000 point Stormcast army by itself. And it's just like, he told this to me and someone else, and me and this other guy just looked at each other, and then we look back at this guy who just said this, and we're just like, well, I think that says more about, you know, your tactics than a bloody how powerful a Mongol is. A Mongol is not capable of destroying a 2,000 point Stormcast army unless the person using the Stormcast army is a complete idiot. And I'm sorry, I try and rein this in a little bit of my whining and complaining here, but I will just lead on to the next thing. It's just like, with Death, like I said, we've got this update now, we've got some awesome new abilities in there, and then, as always, even if you get loads of cool new stuff, there's always going to be people who are going to complain about it and want more, and that's a little bit like myself here. I'm going to complain about a little bit of the changes. I think the changes were amazing, but just a couple of things in this FAQ have, or just a few things are just, some of them are, you know, essential and they're good, and then some of them are just unnecessary, like the Mongol thing, and the Death March battalion. Then there was like that Sacrament artifact, or command trait. And then the other thing is that these new AOs that are coming out, the Daughters of Cain, I think they are fantastic looking models. I was thinking about doing an army of them myself, but I'm just thinking, I I've got like over 10,000 points of Def and Age of Sigmar, and I would just rather do something else. I'm like, you know, dabbling in Lord of the Rings, that sort of thing, because I've pretty much got every Def model that I want, and it's just got to the point now where it's like, so these fantastic Daughters K models coming out, you know, they're lovely. I mean, like, I really like the Marathi model. If I bought it, and my friend's buying, I'm going to have to paint it for him. But I'm glad I don't own it personally, because I would snap that thing's wings so many times, because, you know, fantastic model, but I think more of a display piece, because I think how long its wings are would just snap like anything, unfortunately. And yeah, amazing, and we're getting told about these like CALs coming out, which are like a failed attempt by Tyrion or something, where he's like trying to make this race and it's failed, and now they almost like a sort of, you know, like a, you know, the fisherman sort of room that's been going around, but you know, the ales, and you know, they live, imagine on the sea, where, you know, Atlantis sort of style, I imagine something like that, and you know, they sound quite interesting. You know, I don't think they're going to be my cup of tea, but they do sound very interesting, you know, and I'm happy for elves, because elves haven't had new models for a very long time, and it's great for them. However, where the fuck are our models? You know, we've been waiting bloody ages for new models, and sure, we got the Circle card, but they can't be taken in the battle zone, and we've got the Knight of Shrouds, which haven't got a Nighthawk army. He's a nice model, but he's pointless if you haven't got a Nighthawk army, in my honest opinion. And that's it. Are those the only models we're getting? I mean, like, Def has got a wide variety of models. However, it's a Grand Alliance, you know, and I think Stormcast have probably got more models than us. I mean, like, it's a Grand Alliance. To be fair, if you look through its pitch battle profiles, so you look in the General's Handbook and go, all right, let's have a look to see what Def's got, and you look at things like the Flesh Eater Courts and go, actually, there's quite a lot of models there. It's not, because most of the heroes are just the same model as the unit. Like a Crypt Haunter Courtier, which is the hero for the Cryptoris, it's just the same as the Cryptoris, apart from you give it the head of a Vargeist, and that's it. So, I would have really liked to see new models, especially how long we waited for an update. I mean, I'm saying this now, who knows, in a few months down the line there could be some Def models coming out, and you know, like, I'll take everything I just said, because like I said, we'd really like some new models. I mean, it's a little bit like, I'm really happy for the elves, because, you know, they get new models, you know, it's been a long time since they had new models, you know, I'm happy for them. However, it's like, I do sort of feel like, you know, like when Games Workshop has announced all these new elf stuff, and I sort of like put my hand up and say, oh, does that mean that we're not getting anything? Because as our time, you know, came and been, and don't get me wrong, the Battle Times is absolutely fantastic. Really like it, really like the lore in there, and really like all the you know, things like the Battle Times, not the Battle Times, the battalions, and how they've done the Legions, and how they're narratively driven from the Mortal Archers. I personally find that's really cool. But I would have liked some models, and then it comes to the other thing where, like, if we do get new models now, it's a shame they weren't in the Battle Tome. You're just going to need to get all the models rules on the app as well, or download them on the internet. It's just, like I say, sorry about this segment of the video, because it's just been basically me complaining on things off the top of my head, but I do feel like we're sort of owed, you know, models, and, you know, Games Workshop, to be fair, you know, it doesn't owe you shit. It's a models company that, you know, it makes the models it wants and the things that we'll like, and if it doesn't make the models for your army, you know, it doesn't owe you anything. However, I did feel like they were building up so much to death, and then it's just like, here's the Battle Tome. Oh, cool, that's really good. Oh, there's no new models. Oh, okay, that's fine. It's like the Knight of Shrouds. Like I say, at first I didn't like the model, but I got to like him more, and then he's really good for Nighthorn armies, but everything else he's, you know, not particularly good. And he costs 20 quid, you know, like, for the Harbingers, all of them. I mean, like, the Stormcast one, you know, surprisingly very good if you don't have a Stormcast army, which is a little bit surprising, but what is unsurprising, it's a very, very good hero for everything else, especially artillery and stuff. But even things like that, and just all the heroes in general, £20 each. I mean, like, I was entering the Malign Portents painting competition, as I did a video on, and I got gold in the first part of it, and I was thinking about entering the next two parts, you know, to see how well I can do. However, when I saw the cost of this Harbinger, it's like £20. I'm just like, not interested in that at all. £20 for one model that's not particularly big, and, you know, the rules in the game, you know, are a bit poop, basically. I think is, you know, Games Workshop is almost taking the piss out. I mean, like, I can't bring myself to do it. I mean, like I say, when I went out to Warhammer World, my mate got the ogre burger. It sounds completely irrelevant, but that was £20, and he couldn't eat it all, and he felt sick after he ate it. But he still said it's still better value than a Harbinger, and he does Chaos, so he would have got the War Queen. I've seen the War Queen. Don't get me wrong, nice model, but it's like it's really small. You know, I mean, you can say you want about Games Workshop pricing. I usually defend it a lot because it's all made in the UK, and you know. It depends how much you like the hobby, and if you like the hobby as much as I do, you'll pay the money to get the stuff. But with these Harbingers, £20 for like one small model, it's just... I can't stand that, to be honest. So, that brings us to the end of my complaining, whining, and annoyance for this video for a little while, shall we say. Like I say, sorry about adding that to the end of a video. I didn't want it to spoil the video. I just... honestly wanted to tell you my thoughts about what's happening in the hobby at the moment and how I feel like some of the hits we've got in this FAQ are completely necessary. I mean, like, I don't know, like a tiny little one, like when you set up a unit from a gravesite at the end of a moving phase, can it move? No, that's completely understandable, you know. To me, that's how it read out anyway. That's how I presumed it was, you know, so that's completely understandable. I wouldn't say that was a hit at all. However, when it's things like, oh, so the Death March Battalion, yeah, it's sort of got a use now, but like you're gonna have to like really micromanage it, and you're only going to be able to like make like one unit benefit from it. And has it gone down in points? No, it hasn't. Oh, okay. Has the White King gone down in points? Because 120 points is quite expensive, that model. No, he hasn't gone down either. But we took away his banner, you know, just to make him not as good, and we made the White King with Black Axe. We modified his armor, so you know he can't half one damage attack, so he's not as good as either. But yeah, so that's it. I mean, like I said, there are some good changes in the Death Battle Tome that have, you know, Legions of Nagash Battle Tome that have, like I said, we've taken some hits here, but there's been some changes in that Battle Tome that have helped us in different areas. So overall, we've definitely taken a huge like step up, and I say like, competitively a huge step up as well with the new Battle Tome. However, this FAQ, you know, it could have been a lot worse, but it's hasn't been particularly good for us. And you know, FAQs generally, if the FAQ comes out for a Pacific Army, it's generally not going to make them better. It's just to rein in anything that could be overpowered. However, I feel like they have reined in things here that aren't overpowered. So yeah, like I say, that's it. Like I say, sorry about me complaining and stuff. I just wanted to, like I say, express my views to you about how I really feel. Like the Mongols been made a lot weaker, and you know, alright, it was hard to kill, but I mean, the bloody Star Drake was hard enough. And the thing is like I say, the Star Drake is really hard to kill, but I do kill them every so often when I fight them, but I generally just tend to leave them alone. And nothing generally is unkillable. You know, a Star Drake, yeah, it's good, you know, and it can heal wounds with a Lord Rex nearby. Chuck enough more wounds to that thing, it's dead. There are ways to kill things. I don't think it's right for people to say like, oh, the Mongol was absolutely unkillable. I think people just maybe tried to kill it once and failed, and because they just blamed everything on bad luck on their dice, they just go, oh, well, you know, that thing's overpowered. It's so easy for things just to say it's overpowered. I mean, I was saying, like, the Star Drake's a little bit overpowered anyway. Or, I think, correct way, you know, it's well worth its points. Like the Mongol was. They didn't need to make it weaker. It was perfectly fine as own. It wasn't overpowered. People just couldn't kill it and then complained rather than trying to find out a way. Which just really sort of annoys me of like people's tactics where it's like, oh, well, I can't do something, I'm just going to complain until it gets changed. And you know, that's a little bit like me complaining about how we haven't got any death models, because hopefully you complain enough, you never know, there might be a change. So yeah, again, like I say, sorry not sorry about me complaining at the end of this video. I hope you guys share the same views. If you don't, please let me know down in the comments down below. And like I say, thank you very much for watching this video, and if you have enjoyed it and you know, you found out a few things you didn't know through the questions and answers, please like, comment and subscribe, as that's all really helped me produce more and more videos. And until next time, I thank you very much for watching, and remember, Nagash is all and all is one in Nagash.